Hey guys, Mila Clark-Buckley, the Hangry Woman here, and today we're going to talk about what to do if you can't afford your diabetes medication and some alternatives and options for being able to make them more affordable. Before we get started, I wanted to make sure that you guys like this video and give it a thumbs up. Also, be sure to subscribe if you're looking for diabetes content on YouTube. I myself am diagnosed with latent autoimmune diabetes in adults, or a slow progressing form of type 1 diabetes, and I love meeting people with diabetes all around, so be sure to show some love, give that thumbs up. You can also follow me over on Instagram, where I make tons of content about food and diabetes, just like I do here on YouTube. And I'm so excited to have you as a part of my community. And with that, let's get to it. We have all been there. You walk up to the pharmacy, you're ready to pick up your prescription, and then they name some exorbitant amount of money that you did not expect that medication to cost. And you're like, whoa, 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 wait a second. Sometimes you walk out without that medication because it's way too expensive. Sometimes you just pay it because even if you don't really have the money for it, it's your medication. You need it. You can't just walk away without it. Sometimes you kind of like chuckle at the pharmacist's face when they're like, you're paying how much? You know, this medication costs how much? Like, this is how much you're paying for it. So I think that, we all kind of go through these situations where we're put into a really difficult position because our medications for diabetes are so extremely expensive. But then on the other hand, we also need them. So what do you do? Like, it's hard to tell your doctor, I'm opting out of taking this because I can't afford it, but you know that they're prescribing it because you need it. So, what kinds of things can you do to better afford your medications, and what options are there out there for us? I just want to note that there are different prices that you can kind of look for. So the list price is the price that the actual manufacturer puts the product out at. So you can have a list price, say for insulin, of $400, but then there's also the retail price, which can be marked up however much the retailer decides that they want to sell that medication for. And with the case of a lot of our medications with diabetes, they're medications we can't live without. Insulin. You cannot live without insulin. Your body needs insulin. If you have type 2, your body makes insulin, but it doesn't use it efficiently, so you're often taking medications that help your body use that insulin more efficiently. If you have type 1 diabetes, you don't make insulin, and so you have to take insulin because you need it or else you die. If you're like me with type 1.5 diabetes, you're in a bit of a limbo in the middle. Your body still produces small amounts of insulin. You do need to inject insulin to supplement what your body does not make, or what's, being destroyed by your beta cells over time. And you also can take other medications. Like I take a GLP-1 medication called Ozempic, and that helps me to also utilize the insulin in my body efficiently, the little bit that it's creating, and helps, for better absorption, which means better numbers, which means that my body is working a lot better and I'm not sick and tired all the time, and it's great. But medications like that, insulin costs over $300 a vial, list price. Ozempic, the medication that I just talked about, that medication, the list price is $900. There are other cheaper alternatives. Metformin's super, super cheap. I'm not sure of what the list price for that is, but I can pop it up if I'm able to find it. But it's really important to pay attention to those kinds of things, because what you're going to be most affected by is the retail price, because that is what your pharmacy is going to sell the medication to you for. So oftentimes that retail price is sky high, so much higher than the list price of the medication, and you have to figure out what to do. So I have some tips for you, some tips that I think are going to be really helpful. Honestly, in making this video, I am glad that there are options, but I wish that there didn't have to be. I wish that you could go to the pharmacy. I wish that in the USA your medication was affordable and you were able to get it quickly. You were able to get it without any hassle. You didn't have to jump through all of these hoops of all of these things that I'm about to tell you. I just wish that it was easy. But because it's not easy, I wanted to share the solutions because I think so many people decide that they have to walk away from the pharmacy and that they can't afford their medication, so they just shouldn't take it, which means that they could suffer complications. It means that they could die. It means that they could, it means that their lives are affected. And it shouldn't be like that. And it is like that because of greed. Bottom line, that's it. That's about as far as I'm going to go into that because I feel like I have a whole high horse kind of thing about medications and the pricing and the price of insulin and just like so many things that are so frustrating. But this is just about the solutions that do exist. So let's talk about them before I get too mad about it. First thing you can try is GoodRx or coupon websites, pharmacy coupon websites. GoodRx is probably the most popular, the most well-known, and you can download, I believe they have an app. You can also go onto their website, search the medication that you are taking, and then it'll tell you at different pharmacies what the cost of that medication can be with a coupon, if a coupon is available. What I've noticed for lots of diabetes medications is that the coupon is negligible. It's not very much. And so it's one of those things that like, if you're lucky and you strike gold and it works for you, it'll work for you. But if not, it's at least worth a try looking, but it might not be the solution for you. The other thing you can do is also ask your pharmacist. So when you're at the pharmacy, ask, are there any coupons for this medication? Is there any way to get a discount on it? Is there does anything pop up? And they can always research that for you, and they are happy to do that for you if you ask them, but it's not something that automatically happens. Manufacturers' coupons are another method of getting discounts on your medication. So if you literally Google the medication that you take, so say it's Ozempic, so you search for Ozempic manufacturer coupon, you can usually go to the manufacturer's website, find a coupon that you can print off. Sometimes it's a copay card, sometimes it's a discount card, depends on the manufacturer, depends on the medication, but it'll help you at least lower the cost of your medication. Something to note is that not everybody can use a manufacturer's coupon. It comes with a lot of tiny printed text that tells you who can and can't use it, what kinds of insurances can use it, can the non-insured use it. There's just a lot of hoops. So if you're keen on reading that stuff, just read it and make sure that it is something that you can use, but temper your expectations because you might go to the pharmacy and they might say, you're not eligible to use this manufacturer's coupon because of this, this, and this. That happens very commonly just because there is so much bureaucracy about these coupons and they don't always apply or work for everybody, but they're an option to try out to see if it's something that can make your medication more affordable. Next is patient assistant programs, and very similar to manufacturer coupons, not everybody meets the requirements to be able to be a part of patient assistant programs. Another thing about them, they're relatively new. They mostly came out around the time of the pandemic when people were losing their jobs and weren't able to afford their medications and couldn't take them. And, when you lose your job in the United States, your insurance is tied to it a lot of times. And so people weren't able to be insured, have the coverage that they needed, be able to afford these expensive medications. And so a lot of the manufacturers of some of these medications said, we will open up patient assistant programs where people can apply to get assistance and be able to afford their medications. Some of the downsides of this are that they are short-term and a lot of them do have lifetime limits. So if you max it out in that first period or that first year and you max out the lifetime limit, that's it. That's the only help that you get. So if you ever needed help again, if you ever lost your job again or lost your insurance or didn't have the ability to pay for your medication, if you exhaust their limit, there's no way you can go back. There just isn't. So I think it's really important to also set your expectation with that. It's a very temporary solution. It is one that exists, but like I said, it doesn't apply to everyone, and not everybody is eligible to be able to utilize those patient assistant programs. Another thing you can do is ask your doctor for sample medications. I don't know if you know this, but your doctor's office will often have samples from the manufacturer so that they can give it to patients to try out a medication before you actually commit, to make sure that it's something that works for you, something that you're okay with, something that like your body is okay with, and something that works before you are prescribed like an actual prescription. And then, you go and like fulfill that prescription constantly. So doctors have samples. If you ask your doctor's office for samples, they will give you samples. So utilize, what your doctor has, and utilize what their office has, and ask. Like, if you need a sample of insulin, ask for a sample of insulin. If you need a sample of Ozempic, ask for a sample of Ozempic. And I think that leads into another point, which is if you can't afford a medication, like if it is just not possible for you, if you see that bill and you're like, I cannot afford this, tell your doctor. Don't just skip the medication and not take it. Don't just, not take it for 3 months, go back for your next visit and say like, oh, well, I wasn't taking this at all because I couldn't afford it. Tell them as soon as you realize that it is too expensive, because your doctor will help you try and find options. They'll help you either find a different label or different brand of that medicine that is not as expensive, aside from insulin, because that's like a whole different thing. But if you're taking, other medications, there are competitors. So they'll help you find the right option, whatever your insurance is going to cover best, like whatever's on their formulary, which is like the approved medication that they are allowed to cover. They will make sure that, they find you a medication that's on your insurance's formulary so that you can take it. They might even help you with an appeal if it's something that you really, really need and insurance is denying it and saying that they won't cover it, they won't pay for it. Tell your doctor. They will help you with doing that appeal process. They'll help you to get what you need, but you have to be honest and you have to say it out loud. And there is no shame in saying, I can't afford this. I want to do better. I want my health to be better, but I can't afford to take this medication. Like, that's okay. I don't know any of us who could afford to pay $900 a month for a medication you take once a week. Like, that's what one of my medication costs without insurance. So I think it's super important to have that honest conversation and just say, like, this isn't in my budget. This isn't in my price range. Like, what else is there? What else can we try? What else can we do? Because maybe that combination is something that you can't try, but maybe your doctor can work with you on another combination of medicines that is more affordable and that's going to work better for you. So have that open and honest conversation, because you'll get the help that you need. You just have to talk about it. And I know that is really hard, and it's hard to say that out loud, but it's the best thing you can do for yourself. Then you're not faced with a situation where you're having to pay this huge bill and you can't, and then you have to skip out on your medications, which has awful implications on your health, which is why, again, medications should be affordable for people. And I don't understand why in the United States, of all places, people cannot afford their medication because it's too expensive. It doesn't make any sense to me. It never will make any sense to me. And I'm very mad about it. I'm always going to be mad about it. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, actually. I'm not sorry at all, because people should be able to get what they need to live without the stress and the burden. And it really makes me angry that there is that stress and that burden. And I even have to make this video. Like, okay, anyway, back on track. Let's go back. One last thing that I think is really helpful is that there is mutual aid for diabetes supplies and for medications. Technically, you are not supposed to share medications with anybody. Technically, you are not supposed to give your medications to anyone. It's not legal. It's also not safe either. It's a big liability for you if you give someone medication that they use incorrectly. So that aside, there are options for mutual aid, which is people with diabetes helping people with diabetes. So whether that is through, prescription giving, whether that is through giving supplies, whether that is through monetary donations, through, Venmo or Cash App or PayPal. Mutual aid is, I think, one huge option that is keeping the community afloat and keeping people in the community afloat. And I think it's really noble that there are people who volunteer their time to make these connections with people. I also think that, if we can't find somebody who is going to help us do it, then we have to do it ourselves. Obviously, the manufacturers are only helping so much. They set the prices, so they could do better, they could do more, but they don't. And when it comes down to it, I specifically, just in my own feelings and in my own thoughts, believe that if nobody else is going to help and I can help, I should help. And so I myself give money to PayPals and Cash Apps for people who say that they need food or say that they need, help affording a medication, or people who are basically saying I need the help and I'm not getting the help. And I think that it's really important to recognize that mutual aid is one of those ways and one of those things that is actually really helpful to the community, because without it, people fall through the cracks. Because while these patient assistance programs and manufacturer coupons exist, the time that it takes to actually comb through this stuff, to get through it, to make sure that you are an eligible participant in them, to fill out these forms, to sit on the phone, to do all of this stuff, it takes so much time. It really does. And the options are there, absolutely, but it takes too much time for somebody to get help. And when it comes to diabetes, we don't have time. Time is not on our side. It needs to be something that is accessible to us in the immediate, and something that doesn't have a lifetime limit or a lifetime cap on it, something that can actually help us throughout our lives, because we are living longer and longer, which means that we're doing better, which means that our life expectancies have gone up, which means that living with diabetes is no longer this horrible death sentence. It's not that way anymore. We know more about diabetes. We know more about treating diabetes. We have more choices, more medications, more things that can help us manage our blood sugars. However, we don't have the access to them like we need them. And so that's why GoodRx exists. That's why patient assistance programs exist. That's why manufacturer coupons exist. That's why you have to ask your doctor for samples. That's why mutual aid exists, because these things aren't accessible. They're not as accessible as they should be to any of us. And when you have to jump through the hoops to take care of your health, I think a lot of people just get to a point of frustration where they are doing all that they can, but there's not enough help for them. So I really hope that this video helps you explore those options. I know that they are not the greatest options. I know that they are not a solve all. I know that if you lose your insurance, it's harder to even access some of these programs. I know that it can be frustrating to have to decide. I mean, I have in the past between, am I going to pay my bills or am I going to buy my medication? And nobody should have to make that choice. And hopefully these options are something that makes it easier for you to know that you have some help. And if there isn't an option, I just don't know what to say. It makes me sad that there isn't, but we will find a way for you. And I think that's where mutual aid is kind of the net, because we can find somebody willing to help. And that's the thing. If none of those other things work, if you go through all those channels and those don't work, mutual aid does work. And it's one of the ways that people can get the help that they need from their peers, from people who know exactly what they're going through. And it's so sad that has to happen. But when you exhaust every avenue, what else is there? but to ask for help and to ask for other people to help you. All right, that's it. I can't talk about it anymore because it really makes me sad. And it just knowing that people don't know that these things exist or feel like they have to skip out is the part that makes me sad. So I honestly hope that this video helps. I hope that it gives you options that you didn't know about before. This isn't specifically to diabetes either. If you take other medications, this route is also something that you have available to you to look at, to research, to see if it's going to help at all. And, you know, I think this kind of applies in the general sense, but it's also really important to note that, especially with diabetes, and especially my friends with type 2, like my friends with type 1, you know, we obviously have the burden of the cost of insulin, but people with other types of diabetes can take upwards of 7 medications. I myself am on 4. So I think it's super important to realize that like the burden is there for all of us, and knowing the options makes it easier. Getting to those options might not be the easiest, but knowing the options makes it easier. I also just, you know, think that the more that you know, the better that you can take care of yourself, and the more information that you have, the more empowered you are. So I feel like hopefully this information can be empowering and can really help you decide what next steps to take. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Bye.